Welcome to the video. If you're excited for what's coming up, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. Let's jump into it. The scene flashes back to a few days prior, set in the lavish Grim Reaper Guild Hall, where sunlight filters through the grand windows, casting a warm glow on the luxurious interior. Lee Min-sung, exuding confidence, lounges casually in his chair with a smug grin as he sips from his glass. His mockery begins immediately, taunting the apostle across from him for his perceived evolution. The apostle remains composed, barely reacting as he sips his tea with deliberate calmness. He explains in a cold, detached tone that his earlier, smaller form was a survival choice and now, having regained his strength, his appearance is inconsequential. The dynamic between the two is one of tension, as Min-sung, predatory and amused, leans forward to press further. He questions the apostle's decision to adopt the identity of Park Dojin and become a hunter, fishing for the underlying purpose. Unfazed, the apostle clarifies that names and roles are mere tools. Park Dojin allows him to operate publicly, and becoming a hunter grants freedom to move without suspicion. The conversation turns sharper as Min-sung points out the problems caused by the apostle's recent actions at the airport. The stunt has attracted the scrutiny of the Hunter Association, leading to investigations and increased pressure. Min-sung warns that exposure of the Paiyu Field factory would spell disaster for them both. In response, the apostle remains eerily calm, his words low but authoritative. He assures Min-sung that his membership in the Grim Reaper Guild will prevent such exposure. He outlines his plan to convert all the hunters involved in the upcoming raid into his believers, ensuring no evidence remains to implicate them. Despite the apostle's confident claims, Min-sung is skeptical, his mind churning with silent schemes. Testing the apostle's resolve, he questions whether he can face Taiju, a formidable S-rank hunter, right now. The mention of Taiju darkens the apostle's expression, stirring memories of their prior encounter. In a chilling tone, the apostle acknowledges his promise to kill Taiju, but trails off ominously, leaving the outcome uncertain. Min-sung observes the apostle carefully, his smirk deepening as his true thoughts remain hidden. Beneath his calm exterior lies malice and manipulation. He silently encourages the apostle to keep his deadly promise, indifferent to the consequences for either of them. As long as the apostle fulfills his role, Min-sung's own plans remain intact. The scene begins in the Hunter Association headquarters, where the president sits in his office, illuminated by the faint glow of his monitor. His fingers tap rhythmically on his chair's armrest, his gaze distant and focused on the window. As the Paiyu Field raid approaches, his thoughts linger on the risks and opportunities. He sees this as a critical moment to gather evidence against Lee Min-sung and the Stardust faction. The president reflects on the raid's preparation. The White Tiger Guild has provided critical support, securing A-rank hunter Baek Mi-ho to lead the effort. Additionally, S-rank hunter Choi Jong and another elite are on standby to counter any unforeseen escalations. Despite these measures, the president's mind is clouded by doubt, particularly regarding Park Dojin, the newly recruited S-rank hunter in the Grim Reaper Guild. The timing of Park's arrival is suspicious, aligning too conveniently with the raid. This fuels concerns that Lee Min-sung might be manipulating events in his favor. As the president's thoughts shift, he considers another key player, Suho, who has joined the excavation team. The decision to approve Suho's involvement weighs heavily on him. While he cannot ignore Suho's potential role in the unfolding events, he questions whether allowing this move was a calculated risk or a critical mistake. Resolving to act according to Suho's perceived plan, the president steels himself for what lies ahead. The narrative transitions to the battlefield of the Paiyu Field raid, a chaotic and dangerous dungeon filled with feral monsters. A massive, fire-breathing beast dominates the scene, its guttural roars reverberating through the dungeon walls. Jets of flame wreak havoc across the terrain, leaving the strike team struggling to maintain their footing. At the front line, the tank struggles to hold his position, his shield glowing as it barely withstands the monster's relentless attacks. Straining under the pressure, he calls for the strike team to act before his defenses fail. Just as another wave of fire threatens to overwhelm him, a sudden, thunderous blow brings the beast to its knees. A-rank hunter Baek Mi-ho emerges from the smoke, her fist still smoldering from the impact. Without hesitation, she turns her attention to another monster charging toward her. Launching herself into the air, she lands a devastating uppercut, crumpling the creature's massive frame and sending it crashing to the ground. As the battle intensifies, Mi-ho's sharp eyes lock onto a red-scaled salamander-like monster lunging at her. With remarkable agility, she ducks under its claws, vaults onto its back, and leaps toward the dungeon wall. Using the momentum from her rebound, she propels herself forward and delivers a crushing blow to the creature's head. The impact shatters the ground beneath it, ending the monster's life as dust and debris fill the air. Amidst the chaos of the battlefield, Miho stood resolute, surveying the carnage around her. Broken monster corpses were strewn across the ground, but her focus was elsewhere. Her frustration simmered as she thought about Lee Min-sung. He hasn't even joined the fight, she mused with annoyance. Does he think this is some kind of joke? What a waste of talent. Engrossed in her thoughts, Miho failed to notice the shadow of a monster silently creeping toward her. It moved swiftly, and by the time she caught the motion, it was too late. The beast lunged, jaws snapping just inches from her face. Damn it, I got distracted, she thought, panic rising in her chest. But before the monster could strike, a figure materialized beside her in a blur of motion. The apostle intervened, neutralizing the creature with a single, devastating strike. The monster crumpled to the ground instantly. The apostle's golden eyes flicked toward Miho. His voice was calm, yet commanding. "Hunter Miho, please remain vigilant." Miho stared in disbelief, her mind racing. He took down that salamander-like monster effortlessly with a single strike. And he's wearing casual clothes? Who is this guy? Even for an S rank, this is something else. The apostle then turned his predatory gaze to the remaining monsters. Rolling up his sleeves, he moved with blinding speed, dismantling them one by one with surgical precision. Every attack was calculated, every movement efficient. The display left Miho stunned. S ranks, they're on an entirely different level, she thought, watching in awe as he obliterated the creatures with ease. As the last monster fell, Lee Min-sung appeared, strolling onto the scene with a slow clap. His voice dripped with sarcasm. "Well, looks like that's a wrap. Ended quicker than I expected." Miho's brows furrowed as she turned to him, her suspicion evident. "This doesn't add up," she said sharply. "Paiyu Field has far too few monsters for a raid of this scale." Min-sung's smirk widened, amusement glinting in his eyes. "So you noticed," he said mockingly. "You see, we conduct routine monster cullings to maintain the dungeons under the Grim Reaper Guild's jurisdiction. That's why they're no threat to the outside world." Miho narrowed her eyes. Something didn't sit right. Routine cullings? She thought. Guilds rarely bother with such meticulous maintenance. There's no need to enter a dungeon daily unless. She studied Min-sung closely, noting the faint crack in his usually composed demeanor. Her instinct screamed that there was more to his words than he let on. Something is definitely off here. Noticing her unease, Min-sung chuckled softly. "All right, hunters," he called, his voice laced with false enthusiasm. "The boss monster's room is just ahead." His lips curled into a devilish grin, malice flickering in his eyes. Inwardly he gloated, "Search all you want, Miho. You'll never find anything to incriminate me. The demons have already dismantled the factory and hidden it deep within Paiyu Field. All you'll find here are shadows and dead ends." Meanwhile, the apostle silently observed Miho's grim expression. His thoughts were cold and detached. "You'll uncover nothing here. And even if you survive the trials ahead, your mind won't remain intact." As the group advanced deeper into the dungeon, the apostle's glowing yellow eyes narrowed, a dangerous gleam flickering in his gaze. In a secluded corner of Paiyu Field, the demon Mormu stood in a dark laboratory with two other demons by his side, their malicious presence heavy in the air. Mormu, visibly irritated, gestured toward rows of lifeless, zombie-like humans slumped against the walls, expressing his disdain for the wasted potential. He lamented the fact that the apostle, who should have been a valuable ally, was unavailable, and that the demons were unable to turn the humans into stardust, instead letting them decay. The demon's conversation was interrupted by the sound of a door creaking open. A lone figure, Suho clad in black, stood in the doorway, exuding an aura of authority. He calmly asked Baru, "You're certain there's a demon here?" Baru confirmed, sensing the tainted presence of the demon. Suho casually pushed the door open with ease, revealing the horrifying scene inside. Mormu turned, narrowing his eyes at the intruder, but before he could speak, Suho swiftly struck. In an instant, Suho's punch connected with Mormu's face, obliterating his features and sending him crashing across the room with a sickening sound of crunching bones. Without hesitation, Suho delivered a second, devastating blow, burying Mormu deeper into the wall. The other two demons watched in shock as Mormu's body was reduced to a pulp in mere seconds. Baru, observing the display, commented on Suho's strength. noting the effectiveness of his training with the crocodile. Suho, unfazed, scanned the room, his eyes falling on the rows of lifeless humans. He deduced that they were not in control of their minds and realized that Payu Field was concealing a Stardust factory. Murmu's mangled body began to stir and regenerate, his pain-filled groans morphing into maniacal laughter. Rising from the rubble, Murmu revealed his true intentions, mocking Suho and declaring that he was disrupting the Apostle's grand plans. Suddenly, Murmu convulsed violently, and crimson energy erupted from his body, engulfing the room in searing heat. His form expanded grotesquely as tentacles writhed, and his size grew to tower over Suho. His monstrous new form radiated a terrifying red aura, and Murmu sneered, calling Suho the perfect gift for the Apostle. Despite Murmu's transformation, Suho remained composed, his cold, calculating gaze meeting Murmu's glowing eyes. The tension in the room grew thick, signaling the impending battle between them. We got plenty more where that came from. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for even more amazing content.